How do you stay happy? I feel happiness sometimes, but it's so fleeting. How do I keep it? Well, I think your first issue here is that you think it's possible to accomplish constant happiness, permanent happiness. I got bad news for you. That is impossible. In fact, happiness wouldn't exist without sadness. In life, all good things are good because there is a bad counterpart. Sun only feels warm on our back because rain feels so cold, you know? Happiness only feels as good as it feels because sadness feels as bad as it feels. So happiness cannot exist without sadness. Thus, it's impossible to be happy all the time. I mean, it's also impossible to be happy all the time because, well, number one, it's just impossible. But also, there are a lot of things going on in our lives that challenge us constantly. And we don't get to avoid those. There's no avoiding those. And we shouldn't want to anyway, because again, number one, happiness doesn't exist without negative emotion. The contrast is what makes happiness exist. But also, part of what makes life satisfying is the fact that there's push and pull, there's tension, there's challenge, and then there's overcoming the challenge. There's pain, and then there's happiness again. The push and the pull is what makes life dynamic and engaging and interesting. If you felt happy all the time, your life would be boring. So what you're pursuing, permanent happiness, it's not only impossible, but it also isn't ideal anyway. How boring would your life be if you were just happy all the time? Honestly, I think if you were happy all the time, let's say the impossible came true with you, and somehow, by some miracle, you became the person who defied all odds, who found a way to be happy all the time permanently. I have a hypothesis that you would self-sabotage because you would get so bored and you would feel almost weirdly dead inside from the lack of push and pull to the point where you would self-sabotage and you would create pain. That's a common thing that happens in happy, healthy relationships. It'll be so comfortable and it'll be so good that people will get uncomfortable and self-sabotage the relationship. Same thing goes with, having a good job. Someone will really enjoy their job, so much so that they're like, I can't handle how good this is. I have to fuck it up. I don't know if that's necessarily the exact same experience, but we crave a dynamic life experience. That's what makes life rich. Also, too, I don't think we learn as much when we're happy. That's not to say that there isn't learnings to be learned when in a state of happiness, but I think we learn the most when we're being challenged and we're experiencing negative emotions. And growth is such a beautiful, important thing. It's kind of our purpose as a human being, really. Not to get too existential, but I think growth not only increases our likelihood for pleasant emotion, it actually evokes pleasant emotion. Growing and coming out the other side of a challenging situation in a better place, that evokes pleasant emotion, maybe even at times happiness. Without negative emotion, I don't think we would grow. There would be nothing pushing us to grow. And growth is so important, and it has the potential to create more positive emotion. So I think you need to reframe how you see happiness. It's always going to be fleeting. That is a truth. But also, that's not a negative thing necessarily. And I think reframing the way you look at happiness, accepting the fact that it's fleeting, and actually, in some ways, finding a level of almost gratitude for the fact that it's fleeting, with the understanding that without it being fleeting, it wouldn't really mean anything. I think that's step one. Step two, I would work on managing your expectations, because you want to know something that creates negative emotion? Having unrealistic expectations. So I think it's important to manage your expectations. Okay, right now your expectations are way too high. You're expecting permanent happiness. That's never going to happen. So that's probably leading you to feel far more negative emotion than you need to. I suggest removing expectations completely from how you're going to feel, because you can't really control how you're going to feel. in your life. Like you can't control, well, how do I put this? I think that expectations aren't helpful here, at least in my opinion. Some might disagree, but I think you're better off creating expectations for yourself about your actions because you can control your actions. You see what I'm saying? But you can't really control your emotions, which I imagine is up for debate. Some people probably think you can control your emotions. In my experience, I can control what I do. I can control who I surround myself with, what time I wake up in the morning, what foods I eat, how I choose to spend my time. But I can't choose what emotions are evoked from those experiences. I can only just assume, right? And then my emotions, how I react to what I do, dictate how I treat my next day. I have a certain level of expectations about what I do in my life rather than how I feel in my life, because I feel like if I expect myself to feel something, it doesn't just allow me to feel. You know what I mean? So I would say remove expectations from what you're going to feel and rather focus on your expectations of yourself and what you do with your life. Does that make sense? Because that's in your control more so. And then use your emotions to dictate and to help educate you on what to do in your life. Does that make sense? Expectations not met lead to disappointment and unhappiness. And I think expecting yourself to feel a certain way, to me, that's just not the move because you're probably going to get disappointed. And in your case, you're definitely getting disappointed because you're expecting something impossible.